Hello and welcome. Thank you for watching. My name is Wes, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Today I want to talk about Madame Blavatsky, or Helena Blavatsky. And I also want to apologize if this skips. I'm not sure why it's doing it. The audio is fine, but sometimes the video is skipping. It does get better as it goes. I don't know, maybe my computer's getting old. Helena Blavatsky, that's who a couple of viewers have asked me to talk about her. She is one of the two wisest, and her and Manly P. Hall, I think, are two of the biggest, most widely known teachers of this hidden knowledge that some call the occult. The occult means hidden. It's not an evil word, it means hidden. That's what occult means. So when you say occult knowledge, it's hidden knowledge. Some people can use hidden knowledge for in bad ways. Satanism, Luciferianism can use these teachings, this knowledge, in a bad way. And they were hidden because in the past, because this knowledge has power, and you can do things with it. You can manipulate other people with it, and to give somebody the knowledge who's not ready to have it is like giving, as Helena Blavatsky says, it's like giving a lit candle to a child in a room full of gunpowder, I believe is what she says. So it can be dangerous. But Helena Blavatsky was born in 1831 in the Ukraine. And her great-grandfather had a vast collection of Rosicrucian and Masonic books in his library. When she was growing up, she would read these. So she started off with getting this knowledge from the Rosicrucians and Masonic books. But early on, I don't believe, from what I could in her writings, Isis Unveiled, she was starting to learn, and this was her first book, which sold out within days. And but it's very difficult to read, and she was still trying to understand the teachings herself, I believe, at this time. She married briefly, around 20 years old, to an older man who was like 39. And it lasted just a few months. And then she decided to travel alone around the world. This was very unusual for a woman to be traveling alone to India and all around the world, the Middle East. But she did. And she did this to learn. She had a desire to learn about the Buddhist and Middle Eastern religions, which at their core they're the same as the Rosicrucians and the Freemasons, because they're all trying to teach the same thing. They have different methods, and some religions have gotten way off track from what their original teachings were. But at their original start, they were all trying to teach the same thing. Same thing Madame Blavatsky was trying to learn at this young age when she was traveling all around the world. And that's when she started to realize that all these religions have something in common. And then she realized they were trying to teach the same things. And she came to New York, and she supported herself when she was traveling around the world. She supported herself as being a psychic and a medium to speak with the dead. And if you haven't watched my video on ghosts and demons, you may want to watch that before this one or after it to get a better understanding of where I'm going and what she was doing here. Because she was supporting herself. She was trying to make a living, trying to benefit off of the knowledge that's hidden. And selfishness is not not something you should be using as a purpose when you use this hidden knowledge. And her intuition, and she would use trickery to, trick to have things magically appear during her psychic and her seances and things that she would do. And it made her fairly popular, and she always was one to look for fame. But when she came to New York, in the upstate New York, there was a couple of brothers called the Eddy brothers, and on the Eddy brothers' farm, they would have seances, and they were widely known, and people would travel to upstate New York, and they would go to these seances, and they had it all prepared for the show, and things would appear, and ghosts and images and people would appear, and it gathered quite a crowd, and people would go up there, and you'd stay the night on the farm, and it was something that was popular, and she was interested in this. So she went there because she wanted to see, because that was her, she's been a psychic and medium herself, and she wanted to see what they were up to, what they were doing. And when she went there, she met a man named Colonel Henry Steele Alcott. He was a writer and a journalist in New York, and he wanted to go up and write about this the psychic phenomenon that was going on, and the seances and the paranormal at the Eddy brothers' farm. And that's where they met, and they became good friends and associates who stayed together for many years afterwards. I'm not sure if they were sexually involved or not. They say they were not, so we have to assume they were not, but they were very close friends. It doesn't really matter. They eventually created the Theosophical Society in 1875. Alcott was the president, and Blavatsky was one of the founders as well, and they worked together. And the Theosophical Society was one that what they say is they collect and diffuse the laws of the universe. That's it. They wanted to seek the truth about the laws of the universe and spread them to other people. Now, during this time, The Theosophical Society was in India, and she would communicate with people from the United States and other places around the world. And she was using her knowledge of the hidden forces and the spiritual forces that the average person doesn't know, using her intuition to give advice to people. And she did this by sending out letters, but she didn't send the letters from herself. She claimed they would come from the masters, the highest, wisest people in the world that were scattered around the world that would send these messages, and they would appear to people who she wanted to give this information to. And I believe she was doing it to help people. I believe she was doing it to also influence what people did. And she also did it for a little bit of her own fame. But because she was using this knowledge in a way that was not open, and she was kind of lying about where they were coming from. She was saying they were coming from high wisdom teachers from around the world, because I guess she didn't want to just say they were coming from her. And at some point, because she was becoming famous at this time because of her writings. Her book was sold out within days, and she had this Theosophical Society, and people would go there, and they'd have their they'd do seances there and things like that. And an investigation took place, and a young investigator went there, and he eventually gave a bad review, and spoke to some people and found out that the letters that she'd been sending weren't coming from the high masters. They were coming from her. And there were certain trickery being used where letters would show up in a cabinet in a room, and they were actually for the guests that would go to the Theosophical Society and have these seances. Letters would appear in a cabinet, which were actually slipped through a slot in the back. And like a lot of these paranormal things, like I was saying about the Ghosts and Demons video, if you watch that, you'll be easily manipulated by people who know that you believe in them. You could be easily scared, and that's what she was doing. She knew that there were people that believed in this stuff, and there are natural forces of the universe that she knew about people's minds and the way human beings think and process information. That's the real secret, not the ghosts or demons or speaking to the dead. She just used that as a way to influence people and better herself. And because of this, and she'd used this hidden knowledge of the human psyche and the forces in our world for selfish gains, well, it cost her. Because you can't use these hidden knowledge and occult information in a selfish way for selfish gains, because no enlightened person would do that, because they understand there is such thing as karma, and the karma will always come back and get you, because you're going to get back the energy you give out. You reap what you sow. that is a real law of nature. Cause and effect is one of the Hermetic principles. And it's very real. And Helena Blavatsky learned that because when she was caught, the Theosophical Society was ruined, and she was ridiculed, and everything was pretty much lost because of it. And later on, she redeemed herself because other people realized that what she was doing most of the time was trying to influence people using this paranormal medium, so to speak, to help them, to help ease some of their suffering and in the world. So when people realized that, the press started to talk about her in a better way. And over time she did lose some of, because she learned herself. Because she later wrote a book, The Secret Doctrine, which was her best work, and clearly it's a little bit difficult to read because most of her stuff is, for the average person. I found it difficult to read too, but I understand her stuff because it's the same stuff. I'm a Theosophist myself, and I try to spread the information. I don't do it to harm people. I don't try to trick anybody either. But I try to influence people in ways that are positive so that they can live their life with less suffering. And in that book, The Secret Doctrine, you can take the wisdom that she had. She was way, way before her time. She really knew the forces in the world, the universe, how the human mind worked better than most people. And when you know those things, yeah, you can manipulate people to do things that you want. When later in life, she helped a lot of people, and was not, early on she might have done things selfishly, but once she paid the price for that, she realized and changed. And she died at the age of 59, rather young, of the flu, sitting there in a chair, very quickly. She was one of the wisest people of her day. She learned, her husband, or not her husband, but Henry Steele Alcott, they both became Buddhists when they were over in India, and he helped resurrect, at the time, was a dying teaching. Buddhism is not really a religion, it's just a way of life. And you could say I'm a Buddhist as well, because and I'm a Christian. I'm anything you want me to be, because they're all teaching the same thing. And that's what people don't understand. They think Muslims and Christians are all teaching something different. They have different methods, yes. They have different stories, yes. But they're all teaching the golden rule, every single one of them. And that's to treat people with kindness and sharing, and treat people the way you want to be treated. Not for the sake of them, for the sake of yourself. Because the teachings can be boiled down to two simple things. I mean, there's a lot, but God is good. God is light. Evil is selfishness. and darkness. That's it. Anytime you have a selfish thought, it's an evil thought. Not because it hurts somebody else, which it may, but because it hurts yourself. Selfishness hurts yourself because it propagates thoughts in your mind, and if you'll become a selfish person, you're going to start to give out selfishness, and you'll get that back from society due to karma, cause and effect. So when people think about doing evil things, evil things hurt yourself. People are more concerned with what evil things do to other people, which they can. Evil things can harm other people. But when you understand that you're harming yourself, you don't want to do them. And that's a brief description of who Helena Blavatsky was. I suggest reading her book, The Secret Doctrine. I'm going to do another video in time on Manly P. Hall. He has a lot of lectures online, and you can look him up and listen to some of his lectures on all different kinds of subjects. And they can be a little bit dull to listen to, but the wisdom. He wrote The Secret Teachings of All Ages, which is his, best work. He wrote many other things, but that was what brought him to fame, because it's a basic encyclopedia of the occult, hidden knowledge that's out there. He would bring the world together and unite all these religions, try to point out to people what they all have in common, and that's the universal truth or the universal doctrine. That's what that is what all these religions have in common. They call the universal truth. And when you start looking at it, you can paint a picture of what they're all trying to teach. And it's all the same thing. It's spiritual, a rebirth, an awakening of yourself. And video, I can see that it's happening today.